Welcome back. Well, everybody's here today, and now my next guest is Jonathan Kestenbaum, Chief Executive of Nesta, the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts. So Jonathan, what are you doing here?
Well, we are, as you probably know, the largest endowment in the country, which is driving new imaginative solutions, both on the technology side and on the public services side. So what we're here with is a lot of our companies who are providing the next generation of technological solutions in healthcare, a whole range of medical device solutions, some very unusual disruptive technologies. But what we're also doing, the other very important thing we've learned about imagination and ingenuity in healthcare is that it will have as much to do with new ideas from clinicians, doctors, nurses, and indeed patients as it will to do with new medical devices and new disruptive technologies. And Nesta is probably one of the hotbeds of experiments and risk-taking across both of those fields.
So you have to explain for a layman like myself what disruptive technology is first.
Well, look, I mean, this is the country that produced, the first MRI scanner, however many years ago it was. This was the country that produced some of the first organ transplants in the world. And many of what we regard today as being conventional medical solutions had their origins in unusual types of new technologies which were regarded as disruptive. In other words, they were totally different to what you would have expected. It is the medical equivalent of going from the horse and carriage to motorized transport. And that's what you're increasingly seeing across healthcare solutions today.
Brilliant explanation, thank you very much for that. But it does bring out the problem is, how do you plan for the unplanned? What's your strategy to deal with something which you can't expect? And where do you look for innovations when they're going to come from unexpected quarters?
I think that's a very good point, but what we're increasingly learning is that there are pockets across Britain which are becoming hotbeds of innovative solutions for healthcare. Of course, at the heart of those are many of our great universities. There is a rich tradition now of spinning out from some of our great research universities extraordinary medical solutions. You see some of those exhibited here at the expo. So the university world will be one source, but I think you're absolutely right about something else. And that is increasingly what we're learning across hospital wards, primary and secondary healthcare environments, is that new and imaginative solutions are not just going to be the province of great scientists or great doctors. They're increasingly going to be the province of patients, of users, of families, of men and women of the public, men and women like you and me, who come up with great solutions, and we need a health system that can absorb those solutions. And that's what Nesta is trying to encourage.
Very interesting, actually, just thinking about what's happening with the green revolution in Iran. Sound like a sidetrack? It isn't. And we're not going to CNN and the major news organizations. We're getting the news from the ground, from Iranians twittering, sending pictures to the web. Is there some analogy there with what's happening in your view with technology?
There is a huge analogy in terms of where solutions come from. Once upon a time there was a view that great ingenious solutions which would change our world are housed in laboratories by men in white coats with beards who spend days and days and months and years poring over something, and they will come up with a eureka moment and the doors open, and we, unsuspecting members of the public, will be grateful beneficiaries of their genius. That's one way of doing it. But what we're increasingly learning, and what you're suggesting, is that it's the men and women on the front line of our medical services, the clinicians and the patients and the doctors and the porters and the janitors and the receptionists who deal with issues every single day, who are probably more clear as to where the next round of ingenious solutions will come from. And certainly my view on terms of the grain of the politics of our day is that there will be a greater tendency to empower and to authorize and to convey a sense of trust to the men and women on the front line to deliver those solutions and believe in them, trust them, let them experiment with solutions.
So this is a kind of a parallel, the peer-to-peer networking, that whole concept of modern. But can you give me a sort of a concrete example or something you're developing which displays these qualities and epitomizes them to you?
Sure. I mean, we just completed something which we called the Mental Health Challenge. It was a very unusual project which tried to test exactly this principle. And we built a collaboration with a number of mental health agencies across the country. And we issued a challenge to mental health professionals up and down hospitals and wards in the country, in which we put up a certain amount of money for some of the most ingenious solutions on making the lives of many of our mental health patients in hospitals and wards easier. And it was a totally inverted approach. We went to the nurses, and we went to the clinicians, and we went to the therapists, not to the experts outside of the wards. And we said, you come up with your ideas, and we will back them. We got 5,000 responses. We got 5,000 responses. Now, what that teaches you is there is a huge appetite for men and women on the front line of the services in this country to be given budgets, to be given trust, and to be given authority. We went with the best 50 of those 5,000 projects, and they're being spread up and down the country. A great illustration of how you can take solutions from the front line and drive them through the system.
That's an excellent example. And Jonathan, what great enthusiasm you show. Thanks very much for talking to us, and you're a wonderful example of what this expo is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good, wonderful, thank you. Very animated. Good, no, you're one of the best ones so far.
Oh gosh, I better get out of here then.
Before I go. Is it worth talking about, or is this just going, like, the types of difference between, you obviously sell to both internationally, don't you?
I'm sorry?
You sell internationally?
Yes, we do. We have a huge international business.
And in terms of, is that an interesting area to go? How, like, dealing with the health service in terms of innovation, or is that irrelevant? You supply...
No, I think what we do, our strategy is a global strategy. We don't have a strategy that's unique
So
for the UK.
Okay, well, good. I just wanted to check that.
Yeah,
So we'll just concentrate on your strategy and then what you see coming up. Very quick, very easy going. It's not live, so it'll be edited. Anything.
That's fine.
And anything you particularly want to say? Which you said in the speech. You're probably zoned out. Did you arrive recently?
I came yesterday evening. Yeah.
So you're a bit jet lagged.
I'm fine.
Where's the base?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So we'll